Let's begin. Should we begin with the evacuations, with the diplomats being expelled? Do we begin with the militaries moving towards the border? Do we begin with NATO crapping its pants? Let's go out even further. Because in order to understand what's going on right now, you really have to look at the big picture. Everything is interconnected, whether it's the Trump indictment, whether it's what's going on in Africa, what's going on between North Korea and the Russians, the Chinese, malware, the Poles, moving military equipment to the Belarusian border. It's all connected. The price of gold, the price of uranium skyrocketing, it's all connected. See, here's what's happening as far as I can see it. I'm no expert on this, but allow me to expound upon what I know for you. The American empire is about to contract. You see, and this is I must preface this by saying there's going to be that one guy, because 99.9% of you know what I'm about. I'm a free market guy. I'm pro-American. I love my American brothers and sisters. But there's going to be that one guy who misinterprets what I say. So I must preface this by saying that this is not an anti-American, anti-capitalistic rant. But I'm an objectivist. I'm a realist. So I got to keep it real. This is what is going on. The Pax American Empire and its vassal states, euphemistically termed NATO, are about to enter a period of contraction because they decided to engage in a attritional campaign against the Russians, who unfortunately for us are sitting on hundreds of trillions of dollars of resources that would allow them to fight this war for hundreds and hundreds of years. So what that means is that we must look elsewhere. And in our typical neo-colonial, multinational fashion, where we try to exploit and extort very impoverished countries and get cheap resources for pennies on the dollar, we look to Africa to meet our resource needs. Africa is incredibly critical for Europe right now, who was totally reliant on cheap Russian energy, which is no more. They cut that umbilical cord last year in the form of the Nord Stream pipeline. Now, France, highly reliant on uranium sources from other countries, one of which happens to be Nigeria, who provides 20% of the world's uranium. 20% is a lot. You got to look at these things when you're talking about a critical commodity. A 20% shortfall leads to civilizations burning themselves down. Okay, it's not just, oh, well, 20% of people aren't going to be able to heat their homes. It's when there's 20% shortfall in food, for example, the price of food does not go up correspondingly by 20%. No, it goes up by 4 or 5 or 10 times because the people who are hungry are willing to pay whatever they need in order to get it. Thus, they bid the price up. Europe is reliant on cheap African resources. And right now there is an undercurrent, there always has been an undercurrent of anti-Western sentiment. This awareness that the debts that have been put on African countries, in many cases by choice, opting in corrupt politicians, puppet governments who are being currently puppeted by their Western leaders, essentially. People are starting to resist this, and Nigeria was among one of those countries. Sudan was another. Burkina Faso is another. Countries who are starting to say, we don't want Western imperialism anymore. We are willing to forego the aid that you send us. We're willing to forego any sort of gains that we accrue through you developing our industrial sector. Of course, you extract the resources for much cheaper, so it's a very one-sided relationship in most cases. And some people might argue, look, you know, we all had to go through this developmental phase when we were industrializing. You got to eat it from the start. Maybe generations from now, you're in a more powerful bargaining position where you don't have to allow these multinational corporations to exploit you in the current way that they are. Maybe you get a better deal down the road. But the African countries are saying, you know what, yeah, this just isn't a very good deal. And they're starting to realize that Europe is highly reliant on what they have.